From 1970 to 2011, the LA Clippers were the laughingstock of the NBA. They made the playoffs just 7 times in 40 years, winning only 2 playoff series, and were by far the worst franchise in the NBA. But then they drafted one of the most athletic power forwards ever and traded for the best point guard in the league, and Lob City was born.
Here comes Griffin!
However, despite all the highlights and the promise of winning a championship, they failed. So, just how good was Lob City actually? The Clippers finished the 2009 season with just 19 wins and 63 losses, and were tied for the second worst record in the NBA. The Clippers had an 18% chance to get the first overall pick, but after years of losing, Lady Luck was finally on their side, and they won the right to pick first in the upcoming 2009 draft.
The number 1 pick in the 2009 NBA draft will be made by the Los Angeles Clippers.
And even though the 2009 draft class was filled with great guards such as Steph Curry, James Harden, DeMar DeRozan, and Drew Holiday, the Clippers' choice was easy.
With the first pick in the 2009 NBA draft, the Los Angeles Clippers select Blake Griffin.
Blake Griffin just came off one of the most dominant seasons in NCAA history, where he averaged 22.7 points, 14.4 rebounds, and 2.3 assists per game, breaking a ton of rebounding records. Strong as an ox, with big hands, freakish athleticism, toughness, and an impeccable work ethic, Griffin was out-hustling and out-muscling every opponent that came his way. Even though his offensive game was unpolished, Blake was like a wrecking ball, and he often made other college big men look like little kids, winning all the major awards for Collegiate Player of the Year. Blake immediately proved his class in the NBA Summer League, winning the MVP. But then, a disaster.
Wouldn't live up to that. Telfair! Oh, wow! A monster jam!
In the final preseason game, Griffin landed awkwardly after a dunk, resulting in a stress fracture of his kneecap. After several weeks of hesitancy, the doctors opted for surgery, and Griffin was ruled out for the season. Without their prized first pick, LA had another losing season, with 29 wins and 53 losses. In the 2010 draft, they had the 8th overall pick, which they used on Al-Farouq Aminu, missing out on Gordon Hayward and Paul George, who got selected 9th and 10th. However, when the 2010 season started, Griffin was finally healthy and quickly showed why he was one of the most talented players to ever suit up for the Clippers. Blake scored 20 points and grabbed 14 rebounds in his NBA debut. And in his 14th career game against the Knicks, he finished with 44 points, 15 rebounds, and 7 assists. That game marked the beginning of a 27-game streak where he finished with a double-double, the longest rookie double-double streak since 1968. Griffin was selected by the coaches for the All-Star game, becoming the first rookie since Tim Duncan with that accomplishment. He also appeared in the slam dunk contest, where he absolutely dominated the competition, highlighted by his dunk over a car.
You gotta believe!
Blake appeared in all 82 games, averaging 22 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 assists, becoming the first rookie to average at least 20 points and 10 rebounds since Elton Brand did it in 2000. Griffin was voted Rookie of the Month in all 6 months of the regular season, and he became just the 3rd player in NBA history to be voted Rookie of the Year unanimously. However, despite all the accolades, the Clippers barely improved, finishing with the 3rd worst record in the conference. But then, in the offseason, after the NBA commissioner famously vetoed Chris Paul's trade to the Lakers, CP3 still ended up in Los Angeles, but with the Clippers. The less successful LA team gave up Eric Gordon, Chris Kaman, Al-Farouq Aminu, and a first-round pick for Paul, which was a worse deal for New Orleans than what the Lakers offered. But still, Chris Paul became a Clipper. And this changed everything. On top of being a point god and an uber-efficient pick-and-roll savant who could find teammates with his eyes closed, CP3 was also the best defensive point guard in the NBA, who led the league in steals 3 times during his 6-year stint with New Orleans. When the 2012 season started, Paul led the Clippers' fast-paced offense, and because he had high-flying finishers at the rim, he often threw spectacular alley-oop dunks to Griffin or DeAndre Jordan, which quickly earned the Clippers a new nickname, Lob City. Both CP and Blake were named to the All-Star team and All-NBA teams, becoming the first Clipper players to be named All-NBA since the franchise moved to Los Angeles in 1984. The Clippers made the playoffs, which was only their 2nd playoff appearance in 15 years, where Paul and Griffin led the team to victory over the hard-nosed, grit-and-grind Memphis Grizzlies. It was just the 3rd series win in franchise history, but immediately in the second round, LA was brought down to earth as they got swept by the Spurs. The season was still viewed as a success, considering the long playoff drought, the fact that the team was newly assembled, and the youth of Blake and Jordan. However, for the 2013 season, the expectations grew. and the Clippers looked the part. They won a franchise record 56 games, which was the first time they ever surpassed 50 wins in a season, with CP and Blake leading the charge, alongside proven vets like Chauncey Billups, Matt Barnes, Caron Butler, and Jamal Crawford. Paul led the NBA in steals and finished fourth in the MVP voting, making first-team All-NBA and All-Defense, while Blake made the All-NBA second team. And the playoffs started well for LA. They won the first 2 games at home against Memphis, and everybody believed they would defeat the Grizzlies again. But then, a collapse. Due to a lack of shooting on the team, especially from Blake, who couldn't buy a bucket outside the paint, the Clippers struggled to score, losing 4 consecutive games, and their season was over. Because of poor rotations, lack of tactical adjustments, and questionable in-game decisions, the Clippers fired coach Vinny Del Negro, who was probably the worst coach in the NBA at the time. And in his place came Doc Rivers, an NBA champion with the 2008 Celtics, who immediately brought improvement. DeAndre Jordan started playing more minutes, which solidified the team's defense and rebounding, and Blake started shooting more jump shots, becoming a pick-and-pop threat. JJ Redick was the biggest player addition to help the Clippers spread the floor, and now LA looked like a serious contender. They improved their franchise record to 57 wins and had the best offensive rating in the NBA. Blake and DJ destroyed rims across the league, catching lob passes from CP3, and their big three looked like the best trio in the NBA, outside of LeBron, Wade, and Bosh in Miami. Griffin was third in MVP voting, while CP was seventh. Paul led the NBA in steals and assists, and DeAndre Jordan was the league leader in rebounds, finishing third in the Defensive Player of the Year voting. On top of everything, Jamal Crawford also won the 6th Man of the Year award, and the Clippers seemed like they were finally out of the Lakers' shadow. But amid their most successful season in franchise history, there was also a massive scandal, which had nothing to do with basketball. On April 25, 2014, TMZ Sports released a recording of a conversation between Sterling and his mistress, Vanessa Stiviano, where Sterling was saying that he didn't want Stiviano to bring black people to Clippers games.
What exactly did Donald Sterling say? I don't want my woman around black basketball players. Me neither!
After his comments went public, the NBA banned Sterling for life, giving him a $2.5 million fine and forcing him to sell the team.
I am banning Mr. Sterling for life from any association with the Clippers organization or the NBA.
And despite all the turmoil and controversy surrounding their team, during which the Clippers players considered boycotting Game 4 of the first round against the Warriors, they decided to play, even though they lost the game in a blowout. However, behind 23 points and 6 rebounds on average from Blake and 17 points and 9 assists from CP, the Clippers eventually defeated Steph Curry and the Warriors in 7 games.
The fake handoff and the drive and the collision and the tie! What a play!
And their second-round matchup against OKC was just as nail-biting, with the Thunder and Clippers trading punches and exchanging leads throughout the series. Both teams won 2 games, and Game 5 was another close contest, but it looked like it would go the Clippers' way.
Paul with the jumper. Yes!
As they held a 7-point lead with 49 seconds remaining. But then, Chris Paul committed 2 costly turnovers and fouled Westbrook on a 3-point attempt.
Down by 2, Westbrook for the lead.
The Thunder escaped with a 105-104 victory in what was the biggest meltdown of CP3's career. It's me. Everything that happened at the end is on me. The Clippers had their chances in Game 6, but once again they lost their cool in the clutch, and the Thunder advanced. However, despite failing to make the conference finals for the 3rd consecutive season, the Clippers' main players were still young and in their prime. Paul and JJ Redick were 29, DJ was 26, and Blake was just 25 years old. Barnes and Jamal Crawford were 34, but they were still very capable, and the Clippers believed that with continuity and a bit of luck, they could finally go all the way. For the 2015 season, Griffin further improved his shooting and all-around game. When he first came to the NBA, Blake was a brute finisher, and his main strengths were agility, explosiveness, and a soft touch around the basket. As a rookie, Blake shot just 25% on his attempts outside the paint, but in the 2015 season, this number improved to 48%. Even though his jumper was robotic and slow as hell, Griffin shot 40% on his mid-range attempts. He wasn't a mid-range assassin like Chris Paul or KD, but he was good enough to keep the defenses honest and force them around to close out on him, which then opened his driving lanes and created passing opportunities that weren't there when he was a rookie. In 2015, Blake averaged a career-high 5.3 assists per game. His free throw percentage rose to a very respectable 73%, and the Clippers got another shot creator outside of Chris Paul. CP3 still led the NBA in assists that season, but Griffin's improvement allowed him to spend more time off the ball, resulting in a career-high efficiency, as Paul was very close to shooting 50-40-90 for the season. DeAndre Jordan also improved, averaging a league-leading 15 rebounds per game, as well as 71% shooting from the field, the second-best field goal percentage in NBA history. DJ made the first-team All-Defense, just like Chris Paul, who also got named to the All-NBA First Team, while Blake made the third team. JJ Redick also played the best basketball of his life, averaging 16 points per game and making a career-high 44% of his three-pointers. The Clippers were firing on all cylinders, once again finishing the season with the best offensive rating in the league, and it looked like this was finally going to be their year. But in the first round of the playoffs, a tall task awaited the defending champion San Antonio Spurs. And after 5 games, it seemed like the Clippers were in trouble, as the Spurs held a 3-2 lead in the series with the upcoming Game 6 in San Antonio. However, thanks to 26 and 12 from Blake and 19 points and 15 assists from Paul, the Clippers forced a Game 7. And then, in the deciding contest, a disaster. Chris Paul injured his hamstring in the first quarter, and it was a question whether he could continue the game. But Paul persevered and played through the injury, in what was maybe the best game of his career. CP3 hit 9 of his 13 shots, including 5 of 6 for 3, and a game-winning floater over Tim Duncan that clinched the series. Blake was excellent too, with a 24-point triple-double, and it seemed like the Clippers had finally matured and had a championship mentality. In the second round, LA took a 3-1 lead against the Rockets, winning Game 3 by 25 and Game 4 by 33 points. However, in Game 5, the Rockets outclassed the Clippers, winning by 21 points. But in Game 6, the Clippers bounced back at home, holding a 19-point lead in the third quarter and a 12-point lead with 8 minutes to go. It looked like the Clippers would finally advance to the first conference finals in franchise history, and everybody was already getting their popcorn ready for the clash between the Clippers and the Warriors. But then, a complete meltdown, and one of the biggest choke jobs in NBA history. With James Harden on the bench, the Rockets outscored the Clippers 40-15 in the fourth quarter, led by a combined 29 points from Corey Brewer and Josh Smith, 2 players who came off the bench. The Clippers shot an abysmal 4 for 22 in the fourth, with just 5 rebounds and 1 assist, and it seems like they never recovered from that fiasco. In Game 7, the Rockets led the entire game, and once again, the Clippers went down in flames.
And the Houston Rockets, what an impressive win here on their home floor.
Despite their big three playing fairly well the entire series, the Clippers' role players failed them in this series, especially Jamal Crawford and Matt Barnes, who took a lot of shots but made just 34%, including a horrible 23% for 3. For the 2016 season, the Clippers retained their key players, apart from Barnes, who was replaced by Jeff Green, and vets such as Paul Pierce, Josh Smith, Lance Stevenson, and Luc Ba Amute, who also joined the team to bolster the bench. However, their success was hampered by injuries and the suspension of Blake Griffin, who was out for 6 weeks because he injured his hand while punching a member of the Clippers staff. This incident was the first public sign of trouble in the locker room, as the Clippers' chemistry started to deteriorate. Overall, Blake missed 47 games of the season, but he was able to come back before the start of the first round of the playoffs against Portland, even though it was painfully obvious that Blake was still nursing a quad injury and wasn't at 100%. The Clippers still comfortably won the first 2 games. Portland won Game 3, but in Game 4, the Clippers' season was over, even though they were still playing, because in the same game, Chris Paul broke his hand and Blake tore his unrecovered quad. Without their 2 best players, the writing was on the wall, and another season went down the drain. For the 2017 season, the Clippers didn't make any notable additions, keeping the same core players together for a 5th straight season. But as the league moved towards the pace and space era, the Clippers still played old-school basketball with 2 traditional big men, and it seemed like their championship window had closed. But despite Blake and CP each missing 21 games of the season, the Clippers still won 51 games, surpassing the 50-win threshold for the 5th season in a row. In the playoffs against Utah, LA narrowly lost Game 1, but bounced back to win Games 2 and 3. However, that second win came at a hefty price, as Blake Griffin went down with a toe injury and was ruled out for the remainder of the playoffs. Without Blake, LA managed to win one more game, but they lost the series and got knocked out of the playoffs again. It was clear that this team couldn't stay together anymore. And in the offseason, the Clippers decided to trade Chris Paul to Houston, unwilling to offer him another max deal. Desperate not to lose both superstars, the Clippers gave Blake Griffin a 5-year, $173 million contract. They even organized a fake jersey retirement for Griffin, convincing him that he'll be a Clipper for life and that they'll build a championship team around him.
It was a jersey retirement ceremony, and then Sandra Day sang Rise Up. It was like one of the craziest things I've seen.
Even though he cringed at the jersey retirement, Blake didn't cringe at the money, so he decided to stay. But when the season started, it was clear that the plan was not working, and that the Clippers weren't even a playoff team, let alone a contender. After just 33 games, and a few months after they told him he'd be a Clipper for life, the Clippers traded Blake Griffin to Detroit, which officially marked the end of Lob City. It was a 6-year stretch, filled with memorable highlights, plenty of dunks, and unprecedented success for a franchise that had never won anything. Lob City made the Clippers relevant for the first time, and from that perspective, it can be viewed as a success. But when you have 2 perennial All-NBA players on your team, a rebounding machine, and arguably the best 6th man in NBA history, and you don't even reach the conference finals, then it's a gigantic failure. Their realistic chance of championship came in 2014 and 2015, when the team was healthy, in their prime, and had good chemistry. But thanks to Chris Paul's meltdown against the Thunder and the total abomination that unfolded against the Rockets, the Lob City Clippers never fulfilled their high-flying expectations. Thank you for watching. And if you like this video, subscribe to Nonstop and check out some more of our content.